5, 4, live.
You're now watching two old farts making noises.
Told you why some businesses succeed and some businesses fail. Why some businesses grow and some businesses don't. That's what this show is all about. Business, business, business.
All right.
Okay.
Welcome back, everybody. Another
Hey.
week, Lost Dollar Business Club. And so I'll give you the scoop for today's episode. We'll be talking big government and national debt, AI-assisted fertility, and other AI-assisted technologies, and China's sensitivity to clothes. So they've got a new policy out that we're going to be talking about on today's episode.
That'll make John really happy when we talk about the Chinese. So this is going to be awesome.
Oh, this is going to be awesome. Yeah. And of course, stay
Right.
tuned for Lost and Found.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the best. Everyone likes that
Absolutely.
one.
That's
And
the
just so everybody knows, on Lost and Found, if you don't, you can catch it on YouTube and or TikTok.
Good to know. Good to know. And plus,
Yeah.
okay, other important news, not only on YouTube and TikTok, but we've got merch that's available at Two Old Farts Entertainment.
And we'll put
merch
the link
Lost
below.
Dollar Business Club. Yeah, we'll put that link in the description. Very exciting. Caps, mugs, good stuff. Very creative. Thanks to David, who couldn't be with us today. But
Yes. David's creating merch right now, so he can't be with us. So
no. But good. All right. So, gentlemen, this is part of a multi-part series from the Financial Times where they're talking about all this debt that was incurred by governments all across the world during the pandemic, spending on defense now based on the war in Ukraine, and also spending debt dollars on the green transition. So in many different countries in the Western world, debt is king, and now countries are using fiscal policy to influence entire economies, which is a departure from the previous way of being before the pandemic. Theoretically, I mean, wouldn't you agree that governments have always been interfering with using fiscal policy to influence economies?
Yeah.
I've been doing it since day one.
Yeah. The thing
Yeah.
about the debt, though, that is, okay. So now our debt, the U.S. debt, is $31 trillion. It's a lot of money. It's gone up, exponentially in the last, I don't know, let's call it 10 years. So yeah, it's still manageable, right? If you measure it as a percentage of GDP, it's in the 4% range, which is
No, the deficit is that percentage of the GDP. The gross debt percentage of GDP is over 100% of our GDP because the debt's
right.
30,
Yes. Yeah.
31
Yeah.
trillion.
Yeah.
Our GDP is only about what, 22, 23?
Oh,
Yeah.
got
Yeah,
nothing.
but if you
So I'm going to jump off.
Yeah. It is.
don't worry about that. We're doing a live show. So anyway,
All good.
Go.
they're all good.
But yeah,
if you think about it,
you
though,
got it right though. It's still manageable theoretically.
right?
Yeah.
But it's manageable because we can print money. Our debt's
Yeah, but
always going to be
it's in line-
manageable
it's in
because we can
line.
just keep printing.
It's in line with a lot of other countries like France, Italy, UK, and generally the G20. This article is claiming that it's the general G20, the gross debt percentage of GDP is just about what the US's gross debt is.
But the G20 now is having a problem because one of their members, John's favorite country, China, isn't showing up anymore because they have their other issues and they're trying to do their brick thing. So that's going to be an issue. But on the debt, we've had debt since day one. I mean, if you read a history book, just when the U.S. was fighting all its little skirmishes and back in the day, with the guy with the wooden teeth and I didn't chop down a cherry tree type of crap, we were borrowing from everybody and we had to pay it back. So this is just one of these vicious cycles. Like we have a credit card. The credit card is, the Fed.
Yeah.
And that's how we do it. Forgetting GDP, it's because GDP numbers are manipulated as well. Look at China. Like build a condo, it
It's hard
counts,
to know what
right?
the
So
real GDP is what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, so like whatever I think if the American public really knew what the real GDP was to debt, not just make fakak the 22% that everyone's making up, I think they'd have a heart attack. But then again, 300 million people in America, maybe a million people would have a heart attack because the other 299 million are oblivious to it.
Have no idea. Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah,
why
they
we
don't
have
even,
the
they don't
show,
know
because we
GDP.
want to educate people
Yeah.
on these amazing debt figures that are across the Western world. And we'll talk specifically about the United States, where now
Right.
taxation of younger generations is going to have to pay for so much of the healthcare and benefits for older citizens. And is that actually sustainable when it seems that the older generations, if you look at wealth asset holdings, the older generations have more of the assets than millennials and Gen Z. So,
Well,
Yeah,
that's because we worked. That's because they're all trying to be they're all trying to be like TikTok and YouTube stars, and they're not making their $1 billion. And they're like, oh, what am I going to do? You also have to I think if I remember and read something a while back that, is maybe we have 350 million people here, but
Mhm.
some of them are immigrants, some are this, some are that, right? So some are just starting out. So there's going to be for a while, I think, a disparity on the seesaw. It's like the people that were born in, like, if you will, the 50s and 60s that are starting to get into I get Medicare, I get my Social Security. I think that was a big boom, so to speak, right? With the baby boomers. And now it's sort of, dying down with freelancers and this and that. Now people want life balance. They're not so much worried if they make a lot of money. Back in the day, you worried if you made a lot of money because you had to worry about retirement. And the kids say, they don't think like that. I think that's going to hurt.
Well, I
But I
think
think the
that there
government's
is.
going to do what it always did. They'll bail out. They'll bail it out, and they'll print more money, or China will buy our treasuries, and so will Russia and whoever else, and that'll be their big thing.
You're
I don't
right.
think it's
Young
going to
people are
work that
not
way.
saving for retirement.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
it's going to work that
nobody
way
is
at all.
anymore.
You
I
know?
know. Well, I'm sure we're going to have a problem because I know when I know what I'm supposed to get because how the government sends you your little
Right.
list of how much
That's
money
right.
you're
The
supposed to get for Social
calculation. Yeah.
Security, and I'm like, cool, I'm excited, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think it's going to be here. And I'm
Are
thinking,
you
and
going to
my
get
wife
it?
was like, well, when you're 62, why don't you take the smaller payment? I'm like, but no, I want, like, if I do the math and I think I'm going to live to be 100, better to take it
Yes.
when I'm 70 than 62, right? And it's just stupid math. But it's sort of like, I don't know by the time I get to 62 or 70 if any of it's going to be available,
No.
So
I think everybody's got it wrong. It's a myth that that they won't pay the Social Security. When you're when you're the sovereign, so to speak, you just print it. The government, all
that's
it
what you
does is
say.
it's just an electronic uh, transfer to your account. It's just electronic. They just create it. Now, is it going to be worth what it is today? Probably not. That's a different story. But
Yeah, that's the issue.
you're definitely going to get
Right.
paid. The idea that for instance the U.S. is going to default on its debt, it's ridiculous. They just print it and give it to you. It's done. Now, so those are the two facts that just never disappear. If the debt was in Chinese yuan, well, that's a whole different story, right? But our debt is in U.S. dollars, and we can print the dollars. It's just an electronic, credit to your account, and that's it. It's created out of thin air. The Ben Bernanke said it, at the beginning of the 2008 crisis, or a little bit later. He said, "Yeah, we just credit your account electronically. That's it. Okay, what's the big deal?" So
Right, but
yeah,
that's kind of what I
another
just said.
question.
Governments that print their way out of money. They print their way
yeah,
out of a problem. So
Yeah, but that's not an
like I said,
option for most countries.
But where's the fire here?
right. Well,
yeah.
okay.
I
There
mean,
is no
really,
fire,
where's
right?
the
There,
fire
it's
in the
like,
end? Because what is an economy?
yeah,
It's consumption. What is your country made of? Consumption. You're the biggest
Yeah.
consumer in the
right.
world, right? It's not made on creating goods and services that you're shipping overseas. It's made over how much you consume. And when you stop consuming, it's over. Game's over, right? So they can print and print till their eyes turn purple, right? Because if it's all about Americans continuing to, you know, eat good steak, eat good chicken, drive big cars, have big houses, right? Have lots of crap you're never going to take out the closet. That's what it's built on.
Yeah. The thing is, if it's a kind of a dilemma for the world, right? Because, as you said, the U.S. is the biggest consumer, and so everybody around the world, they're exporting to the U.S. We import
That's
their
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so if the
And
U.S.
there's a
stops
problem.
buying, the domestic markets will have to pick up the slack. But that might be a little bit. It's a process. It's going to take decades, right? The
As
Chinese are
we've
trying to
talked
do that.
as we said on other shows, it's going to take a while for that.
Yeah.
And we have the largest budget deficits, almost in trade deficits in U.S. history now, at $1 trillion. What is it, $1 trillion a quarter or $1 trillion a year? Let me figure that out. But yeah, the trade deficits are huge.
Yeah, the trade. Yeah, it's.
You know, if you look after World War
But once
II,
again,
you know, you had new consumption in the United States, right? It wasn't there before,
right.
and it was a very healthy growth, well, an extreme growth, but it was still healthy, right? But then you had another giant jump in growth in the coming out of the middle class, right? That happened around the tech boom. That one wasn't really sustainable, not in the way that it happened. And now we're seeing the knock-on effects of huge amounts of consumption that have happened over periods, that the economy, the way it's designed, wasn't really designed for that, right? And so they keep injecting money in just to keep it alive. But at the end of the day, they have to reform what it is, because at the end of the day, it's all based on your consumption of world goods.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
the
guess
interesting part of it is that the wealthier people are buying the stupid stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, how many, as I said to one of my friends, how many supercars can you have? How many Rolex watches, if you will? Like, they're buying handbags and stupid stuff. Like, you only need X, right? But they have 50 of them. And that's fine. But when you look at it, that's where it's going. It's not going to, like, now with interest rates up, housing is not, for a certain market, housing is still booming. For another market, it's not booming, right? If you're looking for
Well,
something for under $1 million, let's say, if they can't afford it now with the interest rate and their down payment, but if you have stupid money, you can buy something for 5 or 10 million. So everything, when you look at the numbers, they're not really weighted. They're kind of just like make believe, like we talked about last week with unemployment numbers. It's kind of the make believe numbers.
No, that's a good point, because there was an article about, probably in the Financial Times previously, maybe a few months ago, about the divergent economies. The biggest problem, or one of the biggest problems in the United States at least, is that you have a divergent economy where the poor have no resources to get anything, and the super wealthy are having plenty of resources to get whatever they want. So it's a divergence in the sense of what you can buy and what you can participate in. So wealthier people are actually doing pretty well, compared to, of course, an ailing middle class and lower.
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
but if you listen to people, they can't afford to live, they can't afford to eat, they can't afford this. And I mean, I'm talking about people that will work. And we talked about this last week about, some people, when you talk about like unemployment numbers or whatever, they have 2 or 3 jobs. And they don't have 2 or 3 jobs so they can bank money. They have 2 or 3 jobs just to survive and pay rent and get food. And then most people can't afford health care. So God forbid you get sick and go to the hospital. Right. So it's like, it's this vicious circle, and our government, doesn't do anything, in my opinion. Like, I don't see it. So to your point earlier, John, about we're going to get our Social Security checks, I don't know. We'll have to see how 2024 shakes out in the election. You know what I mean? I don't know how that's going to work. I have a funny feeling if someone gets in, it's going to be like, it's going to be kill or be killed. And I think if the other guy gets in, we'll keep status quo. So I think there's a lot on these parties, because all people in Mr. Trump's party will say are wealthy, supposedly, and this and that, and they don't really want to help the poor. The Democrats want to help everybody. So I think there's a lot to see in 2024 and beyond.
I don't know if that generalization is true. I mean, policy.
Oh, I do. I think in a minute. I think there'll be no policy. There'll be no policy if Mr. Trump gets in. because he thinks he is Putin, and he will. There's no reason. All he has to do is keep the rich people in the military happy, and that's it.
Okay.
I'm just telling you. So,
Look,
John
you
hates
know,
when I go on these. Listen, you hate China, so it doesn't matter.
no, no. I mean, the idea. No, it's It's well known that the Democrats at this stage, they used to be maybe for the general population. Now they just cater to rich people on the coast. You know, let's just clear that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
I mean, don't let's not even. And the other party, you know, isn't even much better. They maybe talk the talk, but they more or less, you know, do very similar things.
no, there's
At
a
the end of
reason
the
why
day,
people call it the uniparty system, because
yeah,
both are doing the same warmongering, whether it's for anti-Russia or anti-China. It's
right.
still about keeping that war machine going, and to some extent.
The other thing, the other point I want to make is that, you know, yeah, you say people are working 2 or 3 jobs, but to Kurt's point, you know, they consume too much and they want too big of houses, and so they've gone into debt to the $14 trillion. So that tells you something. Other places,
Yeah, but not
people are,
everybody. But not everybody, John, is trying to buy a mansion and trying to have 40 cars. Some people
no, no, I'm not
are
saying
just
40
trying
cars,
to
but you know, instead of
live week to week.
But even the
So,
middle
and
class,
listen,
right?
okay, but
I'm talking about the
you
middle
get
class. I'm
there.
not talking about.
It's a process, right?
Yeah, John, this isn't. Not, it's not like it used to be. There's less jobs. I don't care what anybody says. Like if you look at there's less jobs
Well, and
because everything
fewer,
now is
well,
going to
good paying
computer
jobs.
and right. And if you want a shit job, and I'm not trying to be an ass about it, but I mean, if you want a shit job and you want to work at McDonald's, that's fine. But even McDonald's now pays $20 an hour, so it's not that much of a shit job anymore, right? It's like, but you can't survive on $800 a week, depending on where
That's
you
right.
live after they take out taxes. And if you want to, even if you have a studio apartment, you still have to get to work. Can't afford a car. Some people buy a motorcycle, use Uber, take a bus. So, it's a little different for people that are just say, I know middle class is struggling, upper middle to stupid money, right? So if you're just middle class and under, a lot of these people are having real problems. So, it's not what it used to be. And then, John, we know you have your Nazi gold, so you don't have to work, but it's just literally people have to go out and struggle every day. And that's what nobody seems to care about and
Yeah, yeah,
nobody's
yeah.
going to
But
do.
we
And
have a
that's the
culture
issue.
that's, you know, you don't get to $14 trillion in consumer debt, you know, based on that you can't make ends meet. There's a reason why, because everybody is under the impression that you deserve a luxurious lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
Who's
I
under
don't
that
know. But
impression? I was
we'll have
never brought up like that. I
we'll
was
do
brought,
some
you work hard.
Yeah, no.
we'll do some more research for the
Why are
next
you
show,
buying
because
Yeah.
$70,000 SUVs? You know, you could definitely buy a much smaller, you know, Honda Civic for 20 grand. Why are you buying a
A Honda
4,000?
Civic's not 20 grand, my friend. I
yeah,
have to
that's
tell you that.
Yeah, Honda
They're
Civic
like
is
30 now.
no, Honda Civic is are in the 20s. Uh,
If you want tires
yeah,
and an engine and
yeah.
windows, I think
So
it's a little more.
there's a lot of things that people do
You guys have
that
it good.
that that they're taking on that to
Right.
to finance a lifestyle that doesn't match their paycheck.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but you know,
well,
other
but the
parts.
paycheck has been shrinking.
Yes,
The relative,
but if
the
you start out,
purchasing
you
power of
know,
the paycheck has been
if you're a
shrinking.
20-year-old, or you know,
Right.
and you start out thinking that, yeah, you deserve to live in a really nice apartment, a 2 bedroom when you're, you know, a single guy, and you have to go to a gym. You know, I could enumerate a whole bunch of things, and you
Right.
start cutting those things down, you begin to afford your paycheck. Now,
It's
are
probably
there a
those
lot of
chai
people?
lattes too at Starbucks.
Yeah, I mean, do you have to go to Starbucks and pay $5 for a coffee? Are you serious?
I'm
No,
kidding.
I
that's the
mean,
dumbest thing in the
That's
world.
not
I
it.
mean,
That's
here
not it.
That's
in
stupid.
Hoboken, the amount of people that I see on the street that are delivery guys has exponentially exploded. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
you guys don't know how to cook. You know, you don't want to cook. I mean, in my building, I see people getting delivered for lunch. I mean, can't you make a sandwich on
Yeah.
your own? And I mean, there's and those are all little things, but it's a mentality, and I think the number, it reflects that mentality that you can buy a car. The average car payment is now $700 to $1,000. Average,
Wow.
you know,
That's a mortgage.
you know
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
right.
that's a mortgage. You know, stop buying fancy cars. You don't need a BMW.
Yeah.
You don't need an Infinity. Just buy a little Toyota and save,
Well,
and then you
ideally
can.
buy a
coming
used.
coming from the man with the Rolls Royce. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think,
No, I got a
I think
60-year-old
I
car.
think the name you were looking for was Kia.
yeah. So we.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
Kia.
yeah. No, that's only if you don't want your car to be there the next morning.
Yeah.
But no, to your point, John, I agree with you. But see, that's because, and I go back to this all the time, parenting. When I was growing up as a kid, you were taught you save money, you spend what you have, and you don't spend all of what you have. You start to save, and that stayed with me my whole life. Right? Oh, I have this much money. Great. This much has to go into savings or investment. I can spend this much money, and they don't teach the kids. And all the kids see is, and I put this on the Kardashians. Sorry, Kim. Way back in the day when the Kardashians were on E, and it was like keeping up with the Kardashians. Every boy and girl was like, "I want to be a Kardashian." I want to. And now we have YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, and everybody's trying to style, whether it's real or not. And I think that's part of it, right? Everyone's trying to keep up with the Joneses, but the Joneses don't exist.
Well,
You know, like if that's part of the issue.
I think you have to go a little further back and go to the executives, right? Go to your CEOs and go to your bank executives when they went from 150, 200,000 a year to yachts, private planes, 9 houses around the world, right?
That started
And
in the 80s.
yeah, so they led the
well,
way, and it
back
went
to
out
the
of
Judas Good
yeah,
days.
it went out of control from there, and people followed suit because the first guys go through, and all of a sudden they go from living down the street to owning the street, and you go like, how did you do that?
Right.
Oh, I want a piece of that action. And then the next guy goes
Well-
through, and then somebody sees them go through and think, hey, I used to be right next to you in McDonald's yesterday. Now I
Yeah.
want that. And now the whole street wants the same thing, but the economy can't sustain that. And it's
Well,
growing
here's
in ways that are not, that have nothing to base it on. It's just people
And here's a
wanting
perfect
more.
example. Here's a perfect example. It just said Jackson Hole, Wyoming, right? I've been there. Beautiful place. Jackson Hole, Wyoming used to be a place where like 4 or 5 rich people would live. Now Wyoming is becoming where every rich person wants to live because taxes, right? It's like Texas, but nobody wants to live in Texas. It's too hot. They want to go to Wyoming. In Jackson Hole, it used to be the average house would say was a couple $100,000. Everybody could afford to live there. Now the average house price is $5 million. Most people can't afford to live in Jackson Hole. And one of the girls that I read in an interview said she works at a bar. So she drives 40 miles each day to go home and to come to work because she can't afford to live where she used to live in the city, because even the apartment rents are going up. They've knocked down apartments and building now condos that are starting at 2 to 3 million. Houses, are like 4, 5, 6. There's one for 27 million. So my point is that, it's great that people are making money, but if you don't bring up the bottom well, you're going to have a problem. And I don't think when we talk about debt and we talk about things, I don't think people think about that. It's once again, I always joke when people go, Warren Buffett lives in the same house he lived in when he started. Right. But let's talk about his mansion in Bel Air. Let's talk about his penthouse in New York. I mean, let's be real. Like, he may live in the same house in Nebraska, wherever the hell he's from. But at the end of the day, he's got other properties on a global basis. So give me a break. So it's nice that you keep that, oh, shucks, golly gee, bullshit. Full stop. Like, so and it's great that when you die, you're going to leave your money to wherever you're leaving it to. But while you're alive, maybe you should start helping some people because, and I know John hates when I say this, at some point, the straw in the camel's back is going to break. And, we had Occupy Wall Street at one point, and you just saw what happened a few years ago on January 6th, that we're a melting pot ready to explode. And if we don't do something to fix it, there is going to be a big explosion, and it may not fare well for the country overall. So, and that's and whether it ties to debt or whatever. So,
especially while they're trying to gut the middle class, right? That's
basically,
they created it. Now you want to just gut it. You created that. You created that environment, so you don't get to just cut it and walk away. That's bullshit. That's weak and it's lazy.
Well, that's what revolutions are made of. That's
exactly.
Hey, listen, on that note, let's do this for fun because I know how to push this button.
Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bandicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bandicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club.
Huh, you like that? Revolution?
Well
Look at that.
Well, the other revolution that is happening that maybe will save us all is the AI revolution, or kill us all.
2001, thank God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But now they've got AI-assisted fertility treatments. Now it's not a treatment. He's actually using AI to identify sperm cells in a sample and find healthy cells much more quickly than they were doing it manually. So it's really AI-assisted visual acuity. But it is an interesting technology because we're getting all of these different AI-based technologies now to make everyone's jobs, or at least some jobs, a lot easier and a lot faster. I mean, this guy, the one who did the AI-assisted fertility, is they save hours, like an entire day. The computer can do it in minutes. So you can imagine that for a time-sensitive process, which fertility is, this is a big win for them. It's not out of clinical trials yet. I don't think it's actually in clinical trials. They just did a proof of concept, so it's still a long way from commercial viability. But this is the beginning of AI assisted everything, isn't it?
Can I be the
This is
cynic
how
for a minute?
2001.
Well, I get to be.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Can I be cynical?
Sure.
I mean, great invention for something we don't need. There's enough of us here. We don't need more kids.
Actually, there are not enough of us here. No, there are serious in the Western world. This is a serious population problem. Ask Elon Musk. He's tried to promote the issues. He's tried unsuccessfully to tout the population crisis. That we
have 7 billion people. There's no population crisis.
Yeah. There aren't enough people coming up the ranks who are going to fill in the backfill. So we're going to have a shrinking workforce in a decade or so.
We have one now because of AI, because HAL 2000 is taking over the world. Thank God.
Well, that's why it might say
here's one for you, because I know you're a big Elon Musk guy. So here you go. So, Mr. Shrinking Population, do you know how many people you need to populate Mars to make it a thriving colony? I just read this in The Economist the other day. Do you know how many people you need to take to Mars to make it a thriving colony? It's between X and Z. Tell me what you think it is. Everybody guess. John?
It probably doesn't have
people.
Too much.
1,000 people? Okay.
1,000?
She says 1,000. Michael?
No, on Mars, you've got to have at least 50,000 people. More.
Okay, Kurt, how many people do you think you need to make Mars a thriving colony to start?
Based upon its size, I'd say at least 1 million.
Okay, you're all wrong. According to the article and the scientific study that was done, you need a minimum of 10. If somebody dies, you have 1.5 years to bring it back to 10, with a maximum of 50. And if you're feeling generous, 150 people. That will start a thriving colony on Mars. So I was shocked when I read that, and it said you can literally go up there. Yeah, I read this whole thing in The Economist. It was done by some egghead study group. I guess Musk is trying to figure it out, and he's like, "So how many people do we need to send?" And they're like, "Well, you need 10 people minimum, 150 maximum, and that will get you a thriving, whatever you want to call Mars, station, and it can grow from there. But if you drop under 10, you have 1.5 years." To bring it back to 10. If you fall under 10 for longer than 1.5 years, it says your colony will die. And I thought that was interesting.
We've started colonies in other places with those kinds of numbers, but not on Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what they're saying is, though, you don't need that many people to colonize it and run a society.
Right.
And then, the initial, if you will, and I hate to say it, it's Christopher Columbus's and Magellan's, if you will, that go there. They will lay the foundation then for the, whoever said 1 million, their million, and so forth and so on, right? Because we'll deplete whatever resources are there, meet the aliens, and whatnot, or be food for the aliens. So I think it's one of those things. Huh?
There's 10 of you. One of you better be good looking. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the whole thing, because you're going to have to repopulate. You're going to have engineers. You're going to have people that know how to use tools. Because if the machine breaks, someone's got to fix it, right? So when they said the number, I've said to myself, well, this is interesting. So really, you got to have basically single people or married people with kids. You got to pray that the kids that are going up there are smart, or the babies you have there become smart and want to do stuff. But if you have, like we have today, lazy teenagers, they're going to sit around Mars going, cool, dude. I mean, like, so it's very interesting when I read that. So
If
I
you
don't know
got
how
10
AI is
people,
going to help that.
if you got 10 people, there's no lazy. It's either you fix or you die. So
Right, but that's how it is here in theoretic, John. That's on this planet. Fix it or die, and people are
no,
dying
no, it's
because they don't
you
fix
go
it.
to the
I think AI is
supermarket.
going to make things
Oh, it's a
better.
little more, yeah. It's a little
Yeah, I think AI.
softer.
But my whole point was, I think AI will make things better to an extent. For the workforce, easier. For
That's
the
right.
workforce, they'll be losing their jobs. And
Yeah,
listen,
but
that's what
you
this
also
strike.
have AI that's going to amplify the jobs that are already there. It makes my job easier. It makes the jobs of a lot of
Oh, it
professionals
makes our
easier.
job easier at
And it's
TOF.
making it'll eventually make construction jobs easier. I mean, they're already using AI to do physical work.
But
Really?
my point though is keep this. Yeah, they have robots. They build houses now with 3D modeling. It takes 3 people to build a complete house like in 3 days instead of a crew of 50. But here, so once again, what do I do with my crew? What do I do with the other 47 guys now? Right. So as all this technology keeps coming, and we talked about this with Michael Collins, we're not retraining, redoing,
Oh
whatever.
yeah,
So
no,
you're
we've got to
going to
do some
have
real.
people that don't have anything. What are they going to do? And that's part of the issue. It's like you got to think.
The
And I'm
jobs will
glad we're
come
coming up
from
with all this.
the long term game is bringing back onshoring manufacturing. Just bringing back manufacturing alone would give people more jobs, but who's going to retrain them to do it? That's the companies aren't
How?
But
making
what
the
are they going to
investment
do?
to do it.
What are they going to do when AIs
Yeah, really,
and
what are they going to
machinery is
make?
doing all the work?
Robots are going to make it all. What are they going to
Yeah.
do?
No, but people still have to run these factories. People have to still
Yeah,
do.
here's
still
how I
enough.
run it. Here's a
Yeah,
button. Click. I turned it on. I'll be back in 8 hours. And the robots can do everything once it's clicked on. I
35 an
mean,
hour.
unless you're going to fix it. And I will bet you money in 10 years, if there's robots flipping hamburgers or being mechanics or whatever the robots are going to do, and a robot breaks, a little robot like in the Jetson cartoon is going to come out of the wall, fix them with their little screwdriver, go back into the wall, wait for the next breakage.
Yeah.
And
No.
then that robot will have
Not in
like
another
our
robot
Wally.
that
lifetime.
fixes it,
Yeah,
and so forth and
Wally.
so on and so on.
The
Not
Pixar
in our
movie, Wally
lifetime.
talked about
Right,
that.
Wally.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Amazon
the
is a
same in
perfect
the
example
Jetsons.
of that. Amazon,
Yeah,
every day there's a new Amazon being built out here, right? Same old
right.
story. And, all these promises, jobs, jobs, jobs. And then what ends up happening, they get a sweet tax break, right? And you never see more than 50 cars in the parking lot.
And those are robots. They're not even
Yeah.
real cars. The
Yeah.
robots drive those,
Yeah.
then they go to the robot home.
Yeah,
So there you go.
they hire a bunch of people, give you really crappy wages. Half those people leave and they replace them with robots. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same because they know they'll get the money from the government. We'll end up paying through our taxes and they'll more billions for you. Happy days. Yeah, for one.
Well, thank you. But here's the other thing which is interesting. If you look at the strike in Hollywood, okay, we make AI movies on TOF, and
Yep.
we'll put some links here. You guys can watch them if you want. It takes David a day now to make anywhere from a 3-minute to a 12-minute short, and he's done it on Civil War, on lesbians, on Alzheimer's, and all these things, right? So we make AI movies. Now, we're not producers or directors. We're not writers. You know who's my writer? ChatGPT 4. I give it a premise. I say I need a script. Get the script. I take that script, and then we go into the 4 or 5 AI programs we have, and we say pull images to tie to this script, and just say 8 hours later from an idea we have at 6 o'clock in the morning, at 6 o'clock that night, if you will, we have voila, an AI movie.
Well, that's why we need more. This could actually be a boon for the creative people of the world, because now you can take these ideas to life in much shorter time.
Right, but
if you have the
strike in
idea.
Hollywood. Right, and listen, you don't even have to have an idea. If you know how, here's what I've learned with AI. I know how to talk to ChatGPT 4, and I've learned now over the last 6 months how to talk to it and ask it for things. If I ask the right question, it will do what I want. If I just, some people, as you learn it, you just can't ask it's almost like talking to a 5-year-old. I mean that in a good way. It's like, you got to really explain things, kind of how we told John things. But it's sort of like I need to go A, B, C, D. Please do this, and it
Right.
gives me exactly what I want. In fact, we wrote for, if you will, shits and giggles, a manual for fun. How do you start a YouTube channel and what do you need to do? We wrote a 50-page book on it as just to see what happened. And I was like, and it literally was. And if you go and buy and read these other books, everything in there but better. And I was like, interesting. So if you know what to ask it and know and tell it the style you want to write it, like when David makes a movie, he'll be like, write it like George Orwell, write it like Alfred Hitchcock, write it like whoever, Edgar Allan Poe. And it does. And then we give it to the AI and it produces images and it's fascinating. So in a way, I feel bad for the actors and writers and all these people in Hollywood, but to another extent, no, it's like, this is just progression. You know what I mean? It's like, if I'm a writer, I'm going to learn how to use AI as my new best
That's
friend.
right. That's right.
Because AI can help enhance what I write. I can write the beautiful script and go, make it better. And that's why we always talk about 3.5 and 4.0 in chat. 4.0 is like a PhD at a big school, and the 3.5 is like a ninth grader in high school.
But here's the rub.
I find it fascinating.
But here's the rub. Here's the rub, and it comes
No.
back to what we were talking about before, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the end of a movie and that reel goes, it reads like a small town's economy. Right?
Yep.
You shoot that in the foot, and what happens? You don't have that
I'm
economy
aware.
anymore.
Yeah, big risk.
Yeah.
So, there's the rub. Yeah, on one side, it's all great that, hey, we can whip something together ourselves with the minimal amount of creativity and knowledge. On the other side, you get rid of all that knowledge and get rid of all the people that brought knowledge, that have expertise. And those people now are flushed into society with nothing to do.
Well, most of the people I know that work in movie business have real jobs other than the movie business because they don't have full time. It's not unless you're a star, like, you're making $100 million or whatever. But here's what's interesting. If I'm a studio head and all this ridiculous crap that's going on right now, I'm not saying I'm pro or for the strike, or I'm not, I don't care. I have no dog in this fight. But if I'm a studio head and all this bullshit now, and people are saying to me, I don't want to work, I want more money, and yada, yada, yada. And I know my job is all about profit and loss, right? Let's just be blunt. I'm the chairman of a company. My job is not about people. My job is about P&L and my stakeholders. I could care less about my employees. Let's just be very blunt. Let's not sugarcoat it. That's how they think, and we all know this, okay? They're not kumbayaing, they don't care. So if I can write a movie or have a movie digitally made for me, because they have better technology, of course, than we do, and it doesn't cost me, $100 million. It cost me like, $50, being somewhat facetious. Where do you think I'm leaning? Michael Eisner, once again, I brought this in the Keys to the Kingdom. Michael Eisner said, and I quote, the best movie they ever made was Lion King, because cartoons don't ask for residuals. Now they do, of course, the voiceover, but back then they didn't. So they made billions on the Lion King because of that. So, everybody needs a decent wage. Everybody needs this. I agree with all of that. However, you want to start thinking like the guys in the top level at these companies. They don't give a rat's ass about their employees, because you know why? They're making their $100 million a year. They have money. They have this. They have that. They could care less. And I'm assuming most of them are trying to figure out. Look at Netflix. What they put an ad out, $900,000 to $1 million a year for someone that knows about AI. Yeah, I really am concerned about my writers and my actors. No, let's just be blunt. It's not happening, and I feel sorry for them. I think if they embrace it and figure out how to work with it against the system, and being on strike is not helping you work against it. And we have a guy that has a show, Diesel Download, and he's an actor, and he's telling us there's ways to get around it now. Like there's workarounds. If you're a SAG actor, like, oh, it's not this project, but it's this. You can do. So they're still doing it, right? Because the strike thing is for the little people, like the girl who's a waitress or the guy who drives a car at night to pay the bills so he can try to be an actor. It's like in a movie every 5 years. But the larger actors, like, the top 50, top 100 male and female actors, there's workarounds for them. They're all filming. They're all like, there's always stuff. So I just think, it's great. AI is coming. If you don't figure out how to make the population live, once
Yes,
again, you're going to break the straw. That's the straw that's going to break the camel's back. It's all cute right now. It's all great.
well,
It's going to be a point where it's not going to be all great and great. So
no, it's not. It's not. And now you've got the death rate among the working age population increasing, but not for any
Yeah.
particular health issue. It's all the deaths of despair. Talking about
Yep.
drug overdoses, alcohol, suicide, diabetes, and also obesity related health
which is
conditions.
great if
So,
you're a food company, a drug company, or a syringe company. So there you go. And with that, and listen, I'm always trying to be positive here. I think we should go to Lost and Found, boys. What do you think?
Let's do it.
If you like the Lost Dollar Business Club, you should subscribe. If you like it that much, you should also tell a friend of yours. So you should subscribe and like. Also, you should put comments below so we know what you're thinking. Tell us what shows you want to hear. Just help us make it better.
So who's lost a dollar this week? And who's found a dollar this week?
And we're back.
All right.
Well, all right. So David's not here today, so we have nothing for Fakakta. So we're not going to hear about like plants growing wherever or a cow that flies or any of that. So
We're gonna miss it. We're gonna miss David's weird food products.
weird take. Yeah. So all right. So since John's not paying attention, let's start with you, John. What do you got for Lost and Found?
Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin, they're gone. They're not letting go.
Ruth has something apparently for Lost and
Ruth,
Found. But what do you have, John?
Ruth, everybody heard you, Ruth. No, I was gonna say that since Messi arrived in Miami and in the U.S., he has created tremendous amount of interest in football, soccer for you Yanks. And I think that's a big win for the sport and especially for in the U.S. And so that's a dollar win.
Let me just, when I was a kid growing up, Pele was playing for the New York Cosmos, and he did the same thing. But unfortunately, they didn't have enough, if you will, Messi's, Beckham's at that time. They just had Pele, right? He was it. He was the only guy known in the 70s as the greatest soccer player. And now you have so many. So, yeah, I think and if David had a little buzz to go, ding, I think that's awesome that Messi is here playing. I watched the game the other night that he played in. I like his play. I like him as a person. So from what I see, I don't know him personally, but I like what he's bringing to the thing. I mean, hopefully football here in the States does really well. So yeah, that's a good thing. Mr. Michael or Mr. Kurt?
Yeah, I can go. There's a Bitcoin miner who found a huge dollar because it's called Riot Platforms, and they mine Bitcoin relentlessly in Texas. And because they have an agreement with the power company to actually throttle down their mining operations when demand is high, they made more from the payoffs, the credits from the power company than they did on the actual mining operation during the summer because they were asked to reduce their consumption by such a great amount. So big win for Riot. I don't know if that's a win for the population, but that's definitely a big win for the miner.
There you go. Mr. Kurt, what do you have for us? Do you have something for Fakakta or a normal thing?
It's more, it's more this is a loss. The Hurricane Lee going Category 5 over the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. All you can do is cross your fingers and best wishes for them. But the world has seen enough drama in the last few weeks, but something to keep our eye on.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, hurricane season lasts till November 30th, so we got a few more to go. So, and Puerto Rico's been every year has just been beaten up. Like apparently, God does not like Puerto Rico. It's probably like we don't like you. We're just going to keep wiping you out because every time they build something, it gets wiped out. It's a good place for tax haven, by the way. Maybe that's why. And here's one that I thought was interesting: digital currencies. Right now, the central government's had this big meeting. There's a big article, of course, where Financial Times, and they said that we're looking into it now. We're really going to start doing it. The Bank of England is doing it. We're looking at it. Everybody's going to do it. And the most scared group on the planet with digital currencies, credit card companies. Credit card companies, the one Visa, MasterCard, and all the others are saying if once the central government does digital currencies, their concern is people won't use credit cards because they're figuring that the governments then are going to basically use digital currencies like a credit card. It's going to be like you'll have your digital currency card and boom, boom, boom. And so the credit card's now trying to figure out how they combat that. So I thought that was interesting. So I'm not sure if that's a lost
How
or
they
found.
milk more from the system. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, like once again, all these people are going to be out of work. So I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. So that's
Well
it.
done.
So that was cool. And with Michael Collins is coming back, I hear at some point.
At some point, Michael Collins will definitely come back. There's more good news in the multinational corporation world, in the world of reindustrialization of America.
Cool. You
All
like
right.
that? All right. Well, gentlemen, it's always a pleasure. Everybody, don't forget to subscribe and like. And if you've made it this far, the merch is
The
below.
merch.
So, and if you're seeing this on TikTok, we probably didn't put the link in for the merch store, so you're probably going to have to come over to our YouTube channel and take a look at it. But there is a merch store if you like these guys. I think we have John's picture on a mug, and there's some bars in front of it. It's very cool. And then there you go. But anyway, we'll see you guys next Saturday. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to y'all soon. Cheers.
Cheers.